Let's see if we are live on. Please work. There we go. All right. Well, that's nice that it kind of worked for once. I'm happy with that. But here we are. It is Saturday morning. We are on the eve of the Super Bowl here, and we're doing the NBA DFS strategy show. There was some exciting NBA action going on last night, and I slept through it. Very sad. I had loaded up on Lillard and Whiteside and LeBron in my main lineups. I snuck in a nap, I was telling Adam, and I had a soda with dinner, and I still went to bed at 10:30. So, jeez Louise, I missed out on the excitement. I wanted to see, of course, what was happening there in LA, commemorating Kobe. I'm sure there will continue to be things throughout the season. But then, oh my gosh, Damian Lillard is the new Superman. And I'm joined today by Adam's little brother, Billy. So, Billy, thank you for filling in today for Adam on such short notice. But what's going on here? I'm waiting for chat to comment on here. What happened?
I had to switch something up to try and stop getting unlucky. So
there we are.
You have to go. Hopefully, it comes back soon.
So this is I have had my goatee for at least 10 years now, which is crazy. When I met my wife, I didn't have one, and I would grow them on and off throughout the times. And was shortly after we started dating, we were apart for like 2 weeks, and I just happened to grow one. And when I got back, she really liked it, and she was never really a fan for facial hair. And she said, "Well, don't ever shave it off." So yeah, here we are.
Anytime I have a girlfriend, I'm not allowed to shave. I normally don't shave on my own anyway because I don't want to. This is, I think, the first time I've completely shaved in like a year and a half, and it'll probably be the last time for the next like year and a half.
I was gonna say, I remember you doing this once at FanVice, and Laffy made a similar joke about it being your younger brother joining. So there we are. But we'll let a few people trickle in here. I'm going to get this tweet sent out. We'll get the all hands chat going. What did you take from last night's game other than, hey, Rick Carlisle? So here's a question. Let's just start off with this as we collect people. How many minutes do we think Kristaps Porzingis is going to play tonight on the back-to-back? And I can't even think of the guy's name who started next to Barea, and I don't know that
Brian Brokaw.
I don't know that Barea will play tonight because, what is he in his, literally he's 34, 35. This is his 15th season or something like that. I had forgotten. I just assumed he had always played for the Mavs. I had forgotten he had played for like 7 years for the Timberwolves.
I totally forgot about that.
Yeah, I was looking that up because I wrote him up in yesterday's Cash or DFS Building Blocks article, and I was saying, hey, I think he's going to play in one of them for sure. I didn't know, he might start, he might not. That was his fourth start of the season, and I think the 17th game he's played in. He had an elbow injury for part of this year. Last year, his what was it? And I think it was a ruptured Achilles. And he only played like 25 or 30 games last year. And he's, when he does play, he's phenomenal. He's a ton of usage. He's always driving and dishing to the big guy next to him or whatever, et cetera, et cetera. But damn, I didn't really want to play with him in my lineups because I didn't know how long he was going to play, et cetera, et cetera. And I stuck with Brunson in most of my lineups. What are you kind of taking from what we saw last night and applying it today to what should be a very winnable game for Dallas?
So I think the big thing is that at this point, we don't really know. Hopefully we get news throughout the day from beat writers, but it wouldn't be surprising at all if Barea doesn't play tonight, with it being a back-to-back, in which case I would assume that Brunson gets back into the starting lineup. It wouldn't be surprising if they sat Porzingis against Atlanta. After playing 36 minutes last night. He did play both ends of the back-to-back the most recent time Dallas was on one. So I'm going to assume he's in until we hear otherwise. But if we don't get news, I'll project Porzingis for 32 minutes, and he'll be a good play. If we don't get news about the starting lineup, I think it's a situation where, similar to last night, Alex and I talked about it on the deeper dive. We assumed Brunson was going to start, but Brunson was $200 more expensive than Barea. And so you could just global swap. It's not quite the same tonight looking at DraftKings because Brunson's 5,300, Barea's 46. So you could still do it, but it's just not that same, kind of lock play for whoever's starting. But hopefully we get some sort of clarification throughout the day.
All right, so we'll talk about that a little more when we get to the game. Let's see. We do have a one early game. Let's kind of hit on that. As people were saying, we're super late. Actually, no. It was the NFL DFS strategy show that bumped us. The Saturday show was always 11 or 11:30, and Adam and I we weren't coerced. We were told we were going to be going at 9:30 on Saturday mornings. And the second NFL was over, we said, we're coming back to 11. So that's what our master schedule said. I don't know who made the YouTube show. So I didn't click on it to see if that said it was 9:30. But going forward, our baseline is going to be 11. We are going to be adding, it looks like, a Sunday DFS strategy show that will be with Josh Engelman and Sal Vetri, who will be, I think that one is going to be at 9:30s on Sundays. That way it can get in and take care of any of the random early 12:30 games or the 1 o'clock games that tend to happen on Sunday. Once NFL is kind of over and ABC or NBC, whoever the main channel is, starts to show a lot more Sunday featured games. From that standpoint, tomorrow we will not have that DFS strategy show, but there will be at 10:30 a final Super Bowl live before lock, so you guys will want to tune into that. And then tonight we of course have Fast Eddie Fear anchoring the live before lock show. So we've got what do we got here? A 9-gamer. There's one early game. It's Minnesota and the Clippers. The main thing you guys are going to want to figure out is what's going on with Kyrie Irving, God, with Kawhi Leonard. He was one. I think that's the first, maybe the second late scratch of someone of that magnitude that I can remember this season, Adam, where we literally couldn't do anything about it. And I'm not counting like DeAnthony Melton the other night and stuff like that, but a prominent player.
Yeah, that was the first time this season I think I can remember, because I actually went to bed before that game started and it had no impact on my night because I was not going to win regardless. But I woke up and found out he hadn't played and was just like, oh, I kind of forgot this was a thing that you used to have to deal with all the time.
Yeah, that was sort of my thing as well. And it was funny because I had a really good night, and I've been in a little bit of a slump here lately from the I haven't been losing my ass. I did on Yahoo last night because I had an issue with the placeholder lineup mishap, but we'll talk about that later. But I have not had some really good nights, and I had a really good night last night because I had Lillard, LeBron, and Kyrie in my Damian. Whiteside. Good God, we're starting later, and I must be ready for a nap, Adam. I've had 3 cups of coffee and a soda today, so I should be fine. But I'm off. It's because I'm still wearing pajama pants. I think that's throwing me off. I should have just gotten dressed. I've showered and everything, but I thought, it's kind of a gloomy Sunday feel to today. I'll just put pajama pants back on. So there we are. But anyway, you got to figure out what's going on with Leonard. That's going to be the key to everything. If he's out for whatever reason, then go to Paul George. If he's in, then that just tamps down everybody's usage because everybody's healthy again. So just keep an eye on that one. Nothing really else to say beyond that. But let's get to our main one here. We've got the Knicks. We've got some interesting stuff going on with the Knicks. Apparently, okay, what was your take on that whole Elfrid Payton, Jay Crowder thing? Did you see it?
Yeah, I saw it. I actually had a really good lineup with Crowder, so I was pretty mad that he got ejected before his free throws. I understood both sides of it. Like, you don't see guys do what Crowder did, and it's one of those, like, I guess, unwritten rule things. Peyton reacted the way that I think a lot of people would have reacted in that situation. Crowder reacted the way that anyone who just got tackled while they took a jump shot would react. It was just one of those things that was really dumb. I don't think that realistically in the heat of the moment, I don't think that anyone reacted out of the norm once you account for the fact that Crowder stole the inbound and then took a step back 3 up by like 20 points with a minute left. Like, everything from that point on, I think, was pretty much what is going to happen every time.
Yeah, and that was kind of my take too. One, I'm like, okay, I get you're frustrated. I just don't like pushing somebody when they're not expecting it and they're in the air, etc. It'd be one thing if he came up beefing or whatever, whatever they say, posturing afterwards, then I'd be like, all right, whatever. But I thought that was kind of a dick move. But
yeah, I mean the suspension is well deserved.
Oh yeah, everybody should get what they got.
Right.
No outrage here for me other than, man, you're lucky Crowder didn't get hurt in some fashion, spraining an ankle, tweaking a knee, landing on his back, whatever it could have been.
Peyton was also lucky that the ref or whoever it was immediately between him and Crowder as well.
Yeah.
I don't think that was ending well for Peyton.
No, I don't think so. But in any event, we don't have Peyton tonight. Long story short, that means we are going to be looking at most likely, I would guess, Dennis Smith Jr., potential. Oh, Frank Ntilikina is out. I did not realize that. So he's got a groin injury. Dennis Smith Jr. has been announced, it looks like, as the probable starter. It's not official. Barrett's still out for another game or two. Peyton suspended. Reggie Bullock has been dealing with an illness, so he's questionable. We should know more about that. But is Dennis Smith Jr. tonight's Brunson?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really know how to get away from basically minimum priced Dennis Smith Jr. You don't have Peyton. You don't have Barrett. You don't have Ntilikina. You don't have Fizdale, which is a big thing, because if this were Fizdale, then there would be more risk of something like Alonzo Trier or Kadeem Allen playing more minutes than Dennis Smith Jr. But I think there's less of that with Mike Miller. And it's not like Smith's been out of the rotation. He's played the last 2 games as the backup anyway to Peyton. So, and before Smith's most recent injury, you had the Knicks talking about him bringing stuff to the team that they really need that Ntilikina didn't. And so I think that the minutes should be there for him. If he plays absolutely awful, then sure, maybe he loses them, but that's the case for a lot of guys in general. And so $3,100 Dennis Smith Jr., it's just a spot where, even though the matchup's bad and everything, I'm not really going to overthink it.
Yeah, and I completely agree. I think we just kind of go back to it and move along from that standpoint. Go back to it meaning, yeah, this happened with Isaiah Hartenstein. Yes, Clemens. Yes, I mean, we've been getting burned by some of the super duper cheap value. This is a spot where I think we're going to go back to it, and I'm not going to have any problem with it. I've sort of kind of begun taking the MLB approach with things. Adam, I was saying I had a rough patch here. I had a really good night when Leonard was the late scratch, even though I had him on, I did very, very well on the late slate, even though he was on like 30 or 40% of my lineups. He wasn't on all of them. It felt more like a baseball game where you got your pitchers right, the popular guy, imploded, and you had an okay stack, with a couple home runs, nothing too crazy, and you had a good night kind of thing. That's what NBA kind of feels a little bit more like these days.
Yeah, I mean, it's still more predictable than other sports. I think that the best way to approach it, and it's something I've kind of been going back and forth with this year too, because primarily I play large field tournaments where you obviously have to be doing more than just having good projections and getting a lot of stuff right. You have to, really have everything come together. So I've kind of been going back and forth in my approach, and I still think that the best way to approach it is lineup by lineup. On most slates, like there's some slates where you just completely disagree with the field and whatever, but on most slates, I think it's kind of most NBA chalk is pretty good. And so instead of viewing it as like, oh, this guy's popular, I'm just not going to play him, it's just going lineup by lineup and being like, okay, like I have these popular plays in this lineup, so this is where I can play, this low owned pivot over this other popular guy, and going, taking that approach.
All right. Looking at the remainder of the Knicks here, Indiana favored by 10.5 here at home. We have a 212 implied total, one of the lower ones of the night. You've got a slower type pace game, which doesn't necessarily bode as well for Julius Randle. I kind of like Marcus Morris Sr. in this one, but I'm not really getting to anybody early on here outside of DSJ. Are there anybody standing out to you here from the Knickerbockers?
No, not really. It's a pretty good Indiana defense. It's a slow Indiana team. You have 9 games on the slate, so while 6,400 for Morris or 8,300 for Randall are both okay price points there, considering their ceilings, I think you're going to be able to find better plays as you go throughout the game. So, for a team that has a 101 implied total. I'm not planning on going too much further than the minimum price point guard.
All right, let's see here. We've got Dennis Smith, so we just got our ownership projections here updated. Thank you, Tom, for getting those in for us. You've got Dennis Smith Jr. coming in at 37% on DK. Let me see.
That'll go up.
Oh, you're getting a little emotional there on me, Adam. It's okay.
Yeah.
All right, we like this. You've got...
we still have Ntilikina in the ownership projections, so Dennis Smith Jr. is going to skyrocket.
Yep, I would agree on that one. On the other side, Malcolm Brogdon, reasonably priced, but we do have Victor Oladipo back. You've got him coming in at 17%, Miles Turner about 4%, and that's it. Julius Randle, everybody else less than 1% at the moment. So that's kind of how I feel about the whole game here. What are you thinking from the Indiana side? Do you want to take in any of those guys as you're building your 150? Obviously, projections and point per dollar is going to take care of a lot of it. But is there anybody that interests you with things being mucked up a little bit by the return of Victor Oladipo, which ultimately will be much, much better for the team? But at this point, we're still looking at prices for most of the players as if there wasn't, their best player coming back for the first time in a year.
Yeah, the only one that stands out to me is Brogdon, still sitting at 6,600 on DraftKings. He played 30 minutes in regulation last game, and he's been a productive player all season long. I think you expect 30 to 32 minutes here. Some of those minutes alongside Oladipo, but Oladipo is limited, so I'm still expecting most of Brogdon's minutes to be without him on the floor. It's a bad Knicks defense, not a fast-paced game, as you had mentioned before, but I think his salary is a little cheap, whereas you have Sabonis, who's priced up now. Miles Turner is not on the injury report, so assuming Turner is back, Sabonis is going to be playing a lot more minutes at the 4 than he has been over the last few games where he's played really well. Oladipo is still expensive on DraftKings at $6K for someone that you expect to play around 20 minutes. I'm looking on FanDuel now. I know he was 4,300 in his first game back. If he's still priced around there, then I guess it's okay in 20 minutes, but there's still going to be enough underpriced guys on FanDuel that it's not really something I want to get to.
All right.
5,500 on FanDuel. So yeah, not really interested there.
I want to give a shout out here to today's sponsor. That would be SuperDraft. Last night they had the $17,500 main contest, $3,500 to first. Just looking for any notable names here. 1-800-EDDIE, our behind-the-scenes head of technology here at Osmo, got 13th. You had RC Morris take it down for $3,500, and then a name I've seen a few times on here, Shimmy Cocoa Pop. There you go. I thought for a second there I thought it was saying "ship my money," but it was not. Have you been dabbling here on a little SuperDraft? I've played. They have right in my wheelhouse. They have quarter and dollar contests, so I've been mucking around with those.
I've played a few slates. I need to put some time in and finish off my process and how I want to approach it. I've gotten in the 3 days I played, I think I got a 6th place and a 5th place. But I don't feel confident yet that I'm playing as well as I can there.
Yeah, it's one of those where I think once you get the angle on things, meaning how. So you want to look at because of the multiplier, right? So there's no salary cap. That's kind of their mix there. So they have multipliers on their players. So someone who's a superstar, etc., like I don't know, James Harden, LeBron James, etc., they're going to have a 1. So whatever fantasy points they get. And then you're going to have somebody like say Jalen Brunson yesterday was a 1.95. So whatever he got, you multiplied it by 1.95. They're big into the bonuses and scoring there. So it's kind of a mix of DraftKings and FanDuel scoring. So you get 3 points for turnover, or for blocks and steals. You get -1 for turnovers. You get a half point for bonus for 3-pointers. You get the double and triple double bonus, etc. So it's a lot of fun over there. They have been they've opened up some of the smaller dollar contests because they want people to have a chance to figure out how to do the uploads. They're Fantasy Cruncher friendly from that standpoint. We actually have free projections today for SuperDraft, so you're going to want to check it out. If you haven't signed up yet, when you do and you make your first deposit, if you put in $100 and use the promo code Osmo, they will give you another $20 in Super Cash, which is the site currency, and that will come out of your account first and go into the contest. So it's a good way you can try it out. Their featured contest is usually $12 for the entry fee, but even if you put $100 in, you can play 2 or 3 days maxing out the quarter contest, or a couple days maxing out the dollar contest, and just trying it out. Relatively risk free there if you put $100 in. So not a bad way to go. And again, our projections there are free for it. We also have free ownership projections today, so I'll drop the link to that in chat. But you guys, you got to remember, awesemo.com. Go up to the little bar up top, and you can these links yourself. I promise. It's even better if you sign up. And this is your last day to use, second to last day to use promo code LIV. That's for Super Bowl 54, which is tomorrow, and you get to your first month of Awesemo for $54. That is a significant discount over the regular price, and something you should definitely look at. Adam, I've had to close all the windows where I can see you because it's disconcerting. Who is on this show with me? Who is this new guy here that we got to worry about? And then your coffee cup looked a little bit like a beer. I caught it out of the corner of my eye, a little kind of amber color, and I'm like, oh, that's the Adam I know. Beer for breakfast. But in any, got a carbo load early. But let me drop the ownership projections in there so you guys can follow along with that. But again, if you go over there to SuperDraft, that's superdraft.io. All right. Let's see if we can find some exciting games. I promise there are going to be some. That last one really was. It's Miami at Orlando. This one is or is not?
It's not it.
Yeah, it's definitely not it. So 206 over under. Good God, what is this? 2010. We have Miami. I think. Let's see. What do we know about Butler? So Winslow's still out. We've got Butler is in. Kendrick Nunn is probable. For Orlando, you've got Fournier's dealing with a sore back. And then the one thing that did catch my eye as I ran a couple quick preliminary crunches here, Michael Carter-Williams, very, very cheap. I do not like him at $10 on FanDuel or Yahoo. There are a variety of other players that are $10 that you want to go to, including like the entire backcourt of anybody you can imagine there for Dallas. But I thought 3,800, I think, was where he was on DraftKings, so that's a little bit of placeholder value. Of course, we do have Dennis Smith Jr. already for that, but he was one guy that sort of popped into the player pool that I had not seen his name for some time. Let's start off here with the hometown Magic. What do you like here? Not the best of matchups for them. Kind of going to be a slugfest in both directions.
Yeah, not particularly appealing. Both teams are pretty good defensively. Neither team plays very fast. Vooch is reasonably priced at 8,600, but I think you'll be able to find better center options as we get further into the slate. There's nothing that really stands out to me as overly appealing from the Magic.
It's too hard to perfume the pig here. On the other side, you've got Bam Adebayo. You've got Nunn. I don't want Nunn. I don't want anything really from the Miami side. If you were looking for any standout for this one, is there any?
Butler would be the one guy. I think he looks better than anyone else from Miami. He shouldn't really be affected by Kendrick Nunn probably coming back. He should still play around 34 minutes. He's still going to be in the mid-20s in usage and an assist percentage. So all that looks pretty good. The matchup's still not great. The price tag is kind of neutral to me. So it's not so much that I think Butler looks great as I think he looks better than anyone else in Miami.
Yeah, and just so we don't, you guys don't think we're shortchanging you, literally everybody in single digits from this game on DraftKings, with the exception of Michael Carter-Williams, who's at 14%. You've got Aaron Gordon at 9%, Markelle Fultz at 6% on FanDuel. You've got Vooch at 18%, which is solid. Fournier, again, dealing with the sore back, he's at 8%, and then everybody's less than 5%. So really for this game to come into play, we're going to need somebody to be out, an illness, something different. Otherwise, there's a decent enough player pool that just going to these guys would be a little bit of a differentiation play, but they're not in the best spots here, and nobody's really, in my opinion, priced to really take a risk on them. I mean, a decent price there for Markelle Fultz, but outside of 4 good games this season, he's been kind of, I don't want to say disappointing. From a fantasy perspective, we haven't seen much upside from him. The fact that he's shooting and being a starting point guard in the NBA and all that part's great, but he's really not that much of a fantasy asset at this point. So really nothing else in this one. What do we have next? Oh, Oh, Adam, it's our favorite team. I'm using air quotes. Our most frustrating team, the Washington Wizards. Here we go. Now we've got some fun. So you've got Brooklyn coming in here. Wizards favored by 1 at home, which means what? They'll be down by 12 at the end of the first quarter? Isn't that usually how this script works out for the Wizards before reeling us back in?
Yes, they down 30 at the half and then 10 points with 4 minutes left in the game. Yeah.
I've seen this movie before. I know how it ends. Let's start off with the Wizards here. You've got pretty much everybody healthy, with the exception of Mo Wagner. There's a chance that Rui Hachimura comes back in. Do you have any? And then you've got Jordan McRae out, but there are so many guards that just rotate through here. I kind of like Isaiah Thomas as a discount dandy, a bit of a pivot there to Dennis Smith Jr. I'm okay with Bradley Beal. But not exactly the best matchup here going against Brooklyn. But let's start off with the Wizards here. What stands out for you since you watched most of their games?
Yeah, so I mean, still a lot of moving parts here. You have McRae out, like you said. You have Scott Brooks saying that there's a great chance that Rui plays tonight. He did say he'd be limited to around 15 minutes, no more than 20. So what that does is mostly throw a wrench into Isak Bonga, who played 29 minutes last game. In the game against Charlotte, we got Bonga in the starting lineup. We got Peyton and Bonga in the starting lineup with Thomas Bryant going back to the bench as the backup center. I assume if Rui comes back that you probably, I think, will get Bonga starting at the 3, Rui at the 4, and they'll treat Rui like they were treating Thomas Bryant when he first came back from injury, where he was getting starts at power forward, but he was playing like a stint in the first quarter and a stint in the second quarter, the third quarter. So that's my guess, is that the starting lineup, if he does come back, would be Thomas, Beal, Bonga, Rui, and Mahinmi. As far as so you're not going to be looking at Rui, since he's probably only playing around 15 minutes. Bong is not someone that we really roster very often anyway, so not much of an impact there. The interesting thing from last game is that you got Thomas Bryant going to the bench and being the backup center. If you look at the way that game ended up, Thomas Bryant played 23.4 minutes. Basically, you were going to get right around the 24-24 split between Mahinmi and Bryant. Mahinmi fouled out with a few minutes left in the game, though, so you didn't get that. But assuming he comes back off the bench, I'm going to project it the same way, where it's 24 minutes apiece. Bryant played really well in that game. Mahinmi disappointed. But I don't want to overreact. 5,600 for Bryant, I think, is a pretty neutral price. I think that he clearly still has some upside there, but it's tough for me to give him more than 24, 25 minutes. Mahinmi, on the other hand, 4,300. I think if he stays out of foul trouble, you do get around 24 minutes there, which makes him a pretty good value at probably low ownership. The point guard position should still be split between Isaiah Thomas and Ish Smith. Isaiah played really well last game, still only played 22 and a half minutes. I think that you're just going to continue getting this, 27-21 or 26-22 split between Smith and Thomas, which makes neither of them overly appealing. And then you get, Bradley Beal, who is up to 9,900 on DraftKings, but he's back to playing big minutes. He played 35 in the game against Charlotte, lost the final few minutes of the game because of a blowout. He's clearly the leading usage guy on this team. So at 9,900, I wouldn't say a priority, because there are just going to be a lot of really good options at guard in that price range that we'll get to, but certainly still a good play.
All right. Here, what catches my eye? Checking out the ownership here. I did drop the link in there to SuperDraft. The projections, those are going to be free today. Those will be updated probably around lunchtime here, but save on that link so you can get in there tonight. So, yeah, Thomas Bryant at 5K on FanDuel is getting 20% ownership. Beal's getting at 12% at 9,600, and then everybody's kind of single digits. If we look over at DraftKings, Thomas Bryant gets a little bit of love. He's power forward center eligible over there at 5,600, so he's coming in at 15%. You've got Ish at 9, Jan Mahinmi at 6. I did the cheat sheets today. Jan Mahinmi did make it as one of the sort of placeholder value guys there, as Adam kind of mentioned. If he ends up with that the 26 minutes as opposed to Bryant, this is not a bad spot for him to get some rebounds there against Jarrett Allen. You've got Kyrie Irving leading the way here. He laid down a monster in his last game. Adam, that would be last night actually, and somehow because I screwed up my stuff, I didn't have him on my lineup. 71 fantasy points, 54 NBA points, 7 3-pointers, 5 boards, 5 assists, and a steal. Wow. But this is a 3 and 4 here. How do you want to approach Kyrie?
I want to roster him. He's playing the Wizards in a game with a 240 total. That probably goes over because it's the Wizards. Should be a fast-paced game. It's a really bad Wizards defense. There's nobody out there that's defending Kyrie. They'll try with Gary Payton and or Isak Bonga, but just such a bad defense overall that it's a really good spot. The price tag hasn't really moved. I expect that he will be popular. Right now on DraftKings, we have him at 18% ownership, which is around 10th highest on the slate. Yeah, I just think it's a really good spot. He's playing big minutes. He does benefit as well from Spencer Dinwiddie going to the bench because you're just getting more minutes now where neither of Dinwiddie or Karis LeVert are on the floor. So any minutes that he can get like that make him even more productive. Obviously, last night's game should not be a reason that you're going to Kyrie here. That just shouldn't be your thought process. But all the other things, that you should be looking at still point to him as a good play.
All right, moving on down. Just looking at the DK pricing list here, you got Spencer Dinwiddie at 74, Jared Allen at 64, Taurean Prince, a little bit interesting there at 5,500. He has been up and down. You've got Joe Harris at 44, Karis LeVert at 42. I know LeVert is someone that you've kind of had your eye on here. He's playing in the relatively steady since coming back into the lineup here, a relatively steady 20-22 minutes. What do you like here from the understudies? Because this is a Wizards team that is allowing 117 points per possession for 100 possessions. Feels like it's 117 points per possession, but it's per 100 over their last 15 games. And frankly, Brooklyn slipped a little bit. They're 10th worst in that time frame. They're allowing about 110. What do you want here from the understudies?
Yeah, so I've pretty much more or less given up on the Karis LeVert thing. I was hopeful that his minutes were going to trend up and he would start taking some minutes from Joe Harris and or Garrett Temple, but that hasn't really been happening. He's just playing 22, 23 minutes a night. He's playing more minutes with Spencer Dinwiddie now as well since Dinwiddie went to the bench. So you're not getting really anything in the way of peripherals, which hurts. So, I mean, if he's going to ever have a big game in 22 minutes, this is the spot where he would do it. But I've cooled off on him quite a bit over the last couple of weeks just based on how things have gone. You mentioned Prince. I think that 28 to 30 minutes from him, he's okay there at that price point. DeAndre Jordan is only 4,200. He played 16 minutes yesterday, but we know that he's basically going to split minutes with Jared Allen more or less. So there's at least some upside for him if Allen were to get in foul trouble or just play poorly or something like that. It's not a matchup where you need Jordan out there for size or anything. So I'm not projecting extra minutes for him, but I just think it's a little bit cheap price tag for his potential upside. Oh, and Garrett Temple is someone that isn't very productive, especially when he's playing with the starters, playing alongside Kyrie. But 2 games ago, we saw him play 22 or 23 minutes, but that was the game where DeAndre Jordan elbowed him in the face and he had to go get like 16 stitches in the locker room. So he missed the entire second quarter. Last game or yesterday, he played 26 minutes. So I think it's more likely you get into that 26, 27-minute range from Temple, which anytime you have someone at basically the minimum salary facing the Wizards playing that many minutes, it's at least worth a mention.
All right, I could have said it just like this, Adam. It's a remember me game for Garrett Temple.
Yeah.
If he remembers that he did play for Washington. Actually, he played for us like 4 or 5. Oh my God, I actually said us. Oh, that might be the first time I've said that with the Wizards. Yikes. This is what we call the Stockholm Syndrome. Frightening. I'm just checking this out. Let's see. LeVert has played 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 seasons, and he has played for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 teams, including 2 different stints with Sacramento. There you go. Wow. Your mileage may vary with that one, fellas and ladies. But Garrett Temple. Some people have dreams about him. Weird. All right, now we're getting to a good game. A good game to watch? No, but a good fantasy game nonetheless. The Golden State Warriors at Cleveland. Two perennial cellar dwellers. Well, at least perennial if you're counting just this season. But we have the Warriors with D'Angelo Russell is on my short list of players I'm very, very interested in today. I'm okay with Marquise Chris and Glenn Robinson, so I like that crowd. And then coming from the other side here, Adam, for Cleveland, it's been a little bit interesting seeing what Colin Sexton has done. If you go do a little game log surfing, they've been actually pretty nice recently. Darius Garland, it's going to be site dependent if you're looking at him or not. Kevin Porter, yeah, the price is there, but who knows what's going to happen with the production. But it's a decent spot. Larry Nance Jr., similar situation here. I think this is going to be a group of players that is peppered across my lineups. I don't know that I'd want to watch this game. It might make my eyes bleed.
Yeah, it's one of those games where there's not going to be much defense played. There's not going to be that many competent offensive players trying to take advantage of the defense. So who really knows, who wins out there, but it is appealing for fantasy purposes. You look at the Cleveland side, you have only a $6,900 Kevin Love, who is still playing 32, 33 minutes in competitive games. It's a little bit of a cheap price tag for him. Tristan Thompson, I think the center spot is just really interesting because we once again, in their last game on Thursday against Toronto, you saw a competitive game down the stretch where Tristan Thompson did not play in the fourth quarter. He finished the game with 27 minutes. Larry Nance closed over him alongside Kevin Love and played 26 minutes. So I really can't project Thompson for more than 26 to 28 minutes, but at 5K, I can still get to some Thompson there if he's going to be low owned. If he's going to be popular, I would rather just find some other options that I think are going to play more minutes. But the salary is dirt cheap on him. On Kevin Porter, you mentioned the production is a big question, which it is. He's an inconsistent fantasy producer, but he did close that game against Toronto. He played the final 18 and a half minutes of the game, got up to 29 minutes. Dante Exum wasn't in the rotation in the second half. I don't think that's the norm, but I do think that it should be a priority for them to be getting Kevin Porter at least into the mid-20s in minutes, which does give him upside against Golden State at this price point. Then you mentioned, Sexton, who is like a 28.5% usage guy over the last month, playing big minutes. The price tag is kind of tough at $6,700. Like, I would rather go to a $6,900 Kevin Love, for example, but I think that it's an okay price point. Like, if he's going to be low owned, he's certainly someone that has a ceiling that you can use as a contrarian piece in lineups.
Yeah, I was just double checking to see nobody plays again tomorrow. So tomorrow's an abbreviated schedule for those of you guys that haven't looked ahead. Of course, with the Super Bowl, which we will have a Super Bowl show tomorrow at 10:30. There will also be an NBA Live before lock. We just got to wait and see what the sites are going to use for their main slate. There is a 12:30 game tomorrow, 2 o'clock games, and a 3 o'clock game. My guess would be they will do a 3-game main slate starting at 2 o'clock. So we will most likely have the live before lock at 1 tomorrow. If they are going to go with that early game, we will adjust accordingly. But I always like to keep an eye on what Cleveland's schedule is, just to see if there's risk, or I don't know, the risk, if it's where the probability is that we get Love at 30, 32, or 34 minutes. And this feels like one where we might see a little bit from him. On the Golden State side, are you willing to pay this increasing price tag, deservedly so, for D'Angelo Russell here?
Yeah, I think it's fine. The concern that I have is that with Golden State being pretty much healthy now, I think you're going to see a good share of games, kind of like we saw against Boston, where Russell comes up short of how many minutes we would like him to play. You have Jacob Evans back, you have Jordan Poole, you have Alec Burks. You're getting a pretty crowded backcourt now, and that's not to mention Damian Lee as well. So I think there's a little bit more risk on D'Angelo Russell now than there was a week or two ago. But you should still, I think, be able to get, a 32 or 33 minute projection for him is pretty safe, I think. There will still be games where he plays 35, 36. I just don't think it'll be the norm. But even in 32 or 33 minutes, he should lead the team in usage and assists. It's a bad Cleveland defense. So at 8,500, I think he has a high ceiling. I think that it's tough to prioritize him over someone like Kyrie Irving at 9,100. So it kind of comes down to ownership. Like right now we have Kyrie at 17% on DraftKings. We have Russell at 11. I think if the ownership is that close, I would just kind of lean towards going to someone like Kyrie. But if you start to get a bigger gap as the day goes on, and you're getting a sub 10% or 5% D'Angelo Russell, then he starts to become really interesting.
Yeah, and on FanDuel it's 38, Kyrie 34 for Russell. So real close there. Price is significantly different. They're separated by 13.
Yeah, different positions there too.
Oh, yes. Good point. Thank you. Let's see here. Marquise Chris. Hey, I just noticed I'm wearing my University of Washington Huskies t-shirt.
Revenge game.
Oh. Was he...
Pretty sure he was with...
with Cleveland?
I thought he was with Cleveland last year. Yeah. 2000... I don't know, 2019. So
how is this one escaping me?
On February 7th, he was acquired in a 3-team trade.
Holy cow, he started 2 games for him, Adam. Jeez. Yeah.
I don't know why I remember that.
Interesting. So he only appeared in 16 games that season for Houston, but 27 for Cleveland. Didn't remember that. Wow. Well, here's someone who doesn't really like to rebound, doesn't really like to play defense. Was the 8th pick overall. Shouldn't have been. He was a one and done, and even then, he was coming out as a lackadaisical player here. But this is daily fantasy, and he is going against, while it is a tougher front court here, the price, Adam, feels a little bit better, and he's getting, dare I say, steady minutes for Golden State.
He's starting without Cauley-Stein. In those 3 games, we've seen 22 minutes where Eric Paschall closed over him. Then we saw 31 minutes where he closed. And then we saw 23 minutes against Boston where he was in the closing lineup, but the closing lineup went to the bench with 4 minutes left in the game because it was out of hand. So we've seen him close 2 out of the 3 games. We've seen 22, 31, and 23 minutes total. So I think that projecting him in the mid-20s is the way to go. It's kind of like we were talking about with Russell, but on a lower range of minutes where there's a lot of options here still. You have Spellman, you have Green that can play the 5, you have Paschall, you have Glenn Robinson that can play the 4. So there's just a lot of interchangeable bodies here, and I don't think this is going to be a particularly consistent rotation from game to game, but I do think that Chris gets the first opportunity to play well. I do think that Chris is the preferred option here as far as getting minutes. So giving him 24 or 25 minutes, he's 4,700 on DraftKings with power forward eligibility, which makes him more appealing as well. I think he's a good value. I don't expect that he'll be like my highest stolen guy on the slate like he was last time, since we have Dennis Smith Jr. and everything. But if he's the thing with him is that he is a productive per minute player. So if you get one of the games where he plays up near 30 minutes, it's going to be someone that you probably need in your lineup. And if he only does play 23 or 24, he probably doesn't kill you at 4,700.
All right, chat. I'm going to give a couple shout outs here. So hit us with some likes here. We got 530 or so people watching right now. That's pretty solid for a Saturday, and it's because we're starting later because I'm getting some of our West Coasties there. But we have Ibanez says, every time I watch a game, my players do poorly. Yeah, you're doing it wrong. You're doing it wrong. When you watch games, you can will your players to do better. I'm telling you, that's how it works. Am I right, Rusty Jones, who says I am like his degenerate uncle? That's what your degenerate uncle would say, is you can make your players do better with that. They like the new look. Adam Ship, my beard sharer. Babyface Ship. Legalize wants to know who stole Adam's face. Ship my face. This is pretty good. All right, but hit that like button here. It helps us out there with the search. And the algorithms there on the old YouTube here. All right. Oh, yes. And give us some likes for No Josh. So you Josh crowd, you Josh haters, now's your chance. Give us some likes here. And if you like ketchup on your eggs or hot sauce on your eggs, give us a like. There you go. Or if you like your eggs plain. I kind of like my eggs. I like them scrambled, maybe with just a little cheese, Adam. Kind of mix it up there. Sometimes a little feta. Sometimes you put a little dollop of goat cheese on there. Sometimes it can be some sharp cheddar left over from the nachos the night before. Eggs are pretty good. They're pretty good. All right. Anything else you want to point out from this game? Draymond Green. Can you trust him? No. Is he still in your player pool? Maybe. Does he get on your lineups? That's what I want.
Yeah, I think 5,700 is a pretty good price point for him. Same caveat as everyone on Golden State, but we have seen the minutes there recently. He's been playing over 30 in competitive games. He got to 27 and a half and lost the final 4 minutes of the blowout loss against the Celtics. So assuming a competitive game here, you should get 30 to 32 minutes from Draymond. He's not very good at scoring or doing much of anything, but he does, put together enough stats where he'll flirt with, 10, 10, 10 triple doubles. And the thing that it really comes down to is that he's only 5,700. So pretty easy for him to beat that price.
Let's continue moving along here. We are going to Atlanta and Dallas. So this game, of course, is a back-to-back for Dallas. We kind of hit it at the top here, just as we were easing into things here, kind of discussing what we think is going to happen with Kristaps Porzingis on the back-to-back. So I had kind of thought he was going to play around 28 minutes last night. That was sort of my guess. I bounced that off a couple different people who are well ensconced in doing minutes, like Adam and Josh, etc. It's kind of where they were going in. Felt there could be a little bit of upside. The concern with us, and this is not just because we're going to chase this from last night, but we got to figure out what the heck's going to happen tonight. Yeah, he played some fantastic minutes when Luka Doncic was out for got hurt 2 minutes into a game and then missed the next 4. He played phenomenal minutes. The problem is, since coming back from his own injury or the knee soreness, is that in most recent towards the back end, 20 minutes, 26 minutes, 25, 25, 27. That's a little scary. I don't want to put him in for 34 tonight, but I guess 30 might be a better baseline. Adam?
Are we talking Porzingis?
Porzingis, yes.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't know what to do with him last night. I know Alex and I talked about it on the show. We both obviously ended up being wrong on that. We had seen him really just not playing many minutes since coming back from injury, and we didn't know what would kind of take priority there. Luka being out and him needing to play more, or were they just being really cautious with Porzingis? We saw him go out there and play 36 minutes. So at this point, the question to me is, does he play today? We obviously, we'll get that news at some point. But if he plays, I'm not going to project him for lower minutes. Like, I'm going to give him, 32, 33 minutes, because clearly they feel that he needs to play more minutes with Luka out. So I think the decision point for them is, does he play at all, or do they rest him on the back-to-back? If they choose to play him, I don't expect it to be that they're looking to limit his minutes.
All right, let's peek ahead at their schedule. Obviously, this is the back-to-back. How long is Luka out for? I think I thought I saw something like weeks at this point.
I think I saw 2 to 3 weeks. I know I have Wizards tickets to the Mavs game on Friday solely to watch Luka. So I know he's out for that.
All right. So they don't. So they play again Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday. So Friday, Saturday is their next back-to-back. But they have some spacing in here. This is the back-to-back. Hard to know. As Adam said, maybe we'll get a little more love in this one, but perhaps not. So looking kind of at the game flow from last night's game, this is their fourth quarter lineups were, I don't know, different, I guess. So Brokoff didn't see anything after midway through the third quarter. Kleber played, his, I don't even want to say his usual, but he only played 14 minutes, which was disappointing for this one. You had Brunson that played 2 minutes in the first, 2 minutes in the second, and then played basically most of midway through the third once Brokoff was off through the end of the game. You had Seth Curry play a bunch in the fourth quarter. You had Dorian Finney-Smith playing a bunch in the fourth quarter. DeLon Wright was there. JJ Barea didn't see time after midway through the third. This is just, it's like hockey line changes here. I know that that second unit was kind of coming back somewhat, but this is just kind of a weird rotation. I don't know what to take from it. Is there anything that you want to infer? Because you've looked at obviously more of these rotations and maybe have more of a baseline.
The biggest thing is that Rick Carlisle is like the good version of David Fizdale. Like, he's a good coach. He gets the most out of his teams, but his rotations absolutely suck for DFS. So that's the biggest thing, is that I don't think there's a whole lot to necessarily draw from one game, because he has a lot of guards that he can just kind of play based on hot hand and based on matchups and stuff like that. So it's really tough to look at one game from Carlisle and then confidently say it's going to happen again in the next game. You kind of, it's fine to use as a baseline. You just kind of want to keep in mind that a lot can change. It wouldn't be surprising at all if we have a different starting lineup tonight. We mentioned that Barea may or may not play with it being the back-to-back. If he's out, I would assume Brunson gets the start. Brokoff may or may not be in the starting lineup. If it's not him, I would assume it's Curry, who played 25 minutes last night and had been starting. But it's just a really, really difficult team to guess on who fills in minutes when someone like Luka is out, because Carlisle doesn't really have a consistent approach to it.
Yeah, and then the other wrinkle, the other wrinkle, as if we need any more, is the opponent is Atlanta, which is although Dallas favored just by 5. I think if Luka was playing, that would be closer to 11. But in this one, it's a very winnable game, and they're going to need to start banking them if they want to keep their seeding. Anything else you want to ring from the Mavericks before we move on to Atlanta?
So I guess kind of to just like sum it up, because we're dealing with a lot of assumptions here, but whoever starts out of Barea and Brunson looks really good, because the matchup's good. The pricing is still fine, especially if it's Brunson, because if it's Barea at 4,600, he can do well. He's going to shoot a lot. He's a good passer and gets a lot of assists, but he'd be like a 22-minute projection. If it's Brunson, I assume he plays like 32 minutes if he gets the start, and he's over a fantasy point per minute guy without Luka on the floor. So whoever's starting there, I think, is good. If we assume Porzingis starts, I think. What?
Sorry, I thought it was on mute. I'm going to go yell at my dog so she stops barking.
If we assume Porzingis starts, he looks like a great option at 7,200. He's over a 1.3 fantasy point per minute guy without Luka on the floor, and it's a great matchup against Atlanta. So, kind of operating with assumptions there, but any of those guys are good, whoever's starting out of them. And then Tim Hardaway Jr. also, only 5,900, played about 32 minutes last night, and he actually was the highest usage guy in the 4 games that Luka missed earlier this year. So he does have a pretty nice ceiling in the spot too. So I would prioritize them, whoever's starting at point guard and Porzingis as the top 2 guys, and then looking to someone like Tim Hardaway as a secondary option, or Seth Curry as a secondary option, especially if he's back in the starting lineup.
All right, apologies there. Delivery guy rang the doorbell. Then my wife was coming back from her jog, so the dog, of course, had to go ape shit. That's what dogs do. They're on the clock. Got to let me know that things are happening at the front door. Fortunately, yeah, I was gonna. I think you should retweet that tweet that you did with your dogs at your mom's house on the security camera.
Oh, I forgot about that.
We'll just leave it at that. Shout out to our sponsor, SuperDraft. Just leave this at the family portion of the show. Okay, my apologies there. Did you get over to the Atlanta side?
I did not.
All right, Trae Young, John Collins at a reasonable price point here. This one looks kind of like a fun one. Do you want to extend your interest to anybody besides that duo from Atlanta?
Not really. I mean, Kevin Huerter, it's a good price point. He's only 5,300. He's playing big minutes. The rates aren't great with Trae Young out there, and obviously he's playing a lot of minutes alongside Young and Collins. So the rates aren't good, but you expect around 34 minutes here, which is okay. But Trae Young, obviously just still looks really good. He's playing huge minutes in competitive games. They are only 5-point dogs with a 117 total here. Young's assist percentage with John Collins on the floor this year is up near 50%, which is a nice bump over what was already a high, 40% assist percentage. Now you're getting up near 50. The usage still stays around 33.5, 34%. So everything looks really good for Young. The only real question is the point guard position is, pretty stacked. When looking at DraftKings pricing, you have Damian Lillard for $100 less. You have Kyrie for $1,200 less. You have LeBron for $300 more. So I think it's a spot where I'll want to pay close attention to ownership there. But right now we only have Young at about 12%, which makes him look like a good option, I think.
All right, 4 to go here, but I do want to remind everybody here that the future of daily fantasy sports has arrived via SuperDraft. They have an exclusive mode. It's called Multiplier. They want you to say goodbye to salary restrictions and hello to lineup freedom. Use your fantasy sports knowledge to draft any player that you want. As long as you meet the position requirements, you can build your very own dream team. Countless lineup possibilities let you experience daily fantasy sports the way you want. SuperDraft offers contests for NFL. They have single game NFL contests, so you can get in their Super Bowl contest, which of course kicks off at 6:30 tomorrow. They'll have MLB, and they've got NBA, NHL, and PGA right now, so you can enjoy DFS year-round with all of the sports. Sign up today using the promo code OSMO and claim your free $20 in SuperDraft cash with your first deposit of $100 or more. Promo code OSMO. They also have an app that you can download. I have not done that yet. I am more of a computer guy. But it is at superdraft.io. No limits. Warning.
We just got news that doesn't have a huge impact on much, but Kevon Looney expected to play for Golden State today. So just another front court body to screw things up with Chris and Green and whoever else.
And I see that Kemba is out as
we're Kemba's out
that game shortly. Anything else from this one, or we'll head right into Kemba news?
Nope, we can go to Boston.
All right, let's look at Boston. They are hosting Philadelphia here. Boston favored at home by a bucket. You've got Embiid, who is dealing with recovering from the hand surgery to repair that dislocated finger. You've got Al Horford, who sat out with I don't know, I call it rest, but knee soreness against one of his former teams, Atlanta. Now he's got another former team here, Boston. But Horford at 6,500, kind of interesting there on DraftKings. No Kemba. What does this mean? Marcus Smart, who's actually on the right side, 6,300 on DraftKings for Smart already. Was that a proactive pricing?
He's been priced up since just as a result of all the injuries, because Boston hasn't really had a fully healthy game outside of their last one. Like it's always been Brown out, Tatum out, Kemba out, Brown out, Tatum out. So yeah, his price just kind of moved.
Right, and then Brown is fine. Tatum, the other guy, he was on. I can't remember if it was a 20-minute limit in the last game or 24. He played 24 minutes, dropped 20 points, 6 boards, but that was against Golden State. Tougher matchup here. What do you want to do with the Celtics? No Kemba.
Roster a lot of them. It's not a good matchup against Philly, but you just get such a bump without Kemba on the floor. For the season, Jason Tatum has a 33% usage rate. He's averaged 1.24 DraftKings points per minute without Kemba on the floor. They said that he was going to be limited in his last game against Golden State. He played 24 minutes, but that was a game that wasn't competitive. And then now I would expect him to be close to full run unless we hear that he's not. So he looks really good. Jaylen Brown and Marcus Smart both right around a fantasy point per minute without Kemba on the floor. In the last game that Kemba missed, which was January 18th against Phoenix, you got 33 minutes from Smart, 41 from Hayward, 39 from Tatum. Brown was also out of that game. So, I would expect that maybe that you get around 36 from Brown as well. It's just a situation where you're missing the primary ball handler and one of the highest usage guys on the team. And so even though the pricing it's pretty expensive on these guys because of all the injuries recently, but I do think that with Kemba out, they look like pretty good options because they should play big minutes, and it's one less guy that's getting a lot of usage.
Right. The other interesting thing here is nobody's. So this overall game is kind of interesting, and this is sort of a little DFS strategy moment because this is the DFS strategy show. You've got two teams that right now over the last 15 games are basically top 5 in defensive efficiency here. The Celtics allowing 108 points per 100 possessions, Philly allowing 107. Only teams better during that stretch are the Magic, Lakers, Raptors, and Bucks. So no real surprise there. They're playing at middle of the pack pace during this time, sort of similar with their offensive rating. But when you get huge swaths of usage out of there, even though there's not a we're going to play Dennis Smith Jr. kind of result here, there's still some interesting plays from this one. On the other side, we got a lot of question marks. Shake Milton, I listed him as the bust of the day for his last game. Wrote him up as
That
risky
didn't go very
value.
well.
Yeah, he 46 fantasy points, Adam. It's like the kiss of death for me. 5
Yeah,
three-pointers.
it's like Josh's contenders rankings.
What happens with this contenders ranking?
They all suck. Just kidding, but he had one day that was it was just one of the days where like all the top
All the
plays just
good plays did poorly.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a reason they play the games, guys.
Yeah. But I think it was like his second day doing it, and it was just like the entire list was just busts.
Oh, very nice, very nice. But Milton has been playing a more prominent role with Richardson out, or Josh Richardson out. He is moved into the starting lineup. I would suspect we'll see closer to 25 minutes in this one, but we're seeing his price kind of tick up. We are chasing a little bit of fool's gold there. The last result was a good game against Atlanta. Fast-paced team, does play a lot of defense. 5,200. I really am not that interested in Milton, but Ben Simmons at 9, Joel Embiid at 96. You got Horford coming back in here at 65. That's a nice price there for Horford. How do you like the 76ers here?
Yeah, so I mean, I agree with you on Milton. I think you probably get around 26 minutes from him now that Horford's back. Last game, obviously, you had Richardson and Horford both out. I think that you probably get around 26 minutes there. The last time so 2 games ago against Golden State, when Embiid came back and Horford was in, you got 26 for Milton, you got 24 for Thibault, you got 22 for Korkmaz. I expect it to be distributed similarly to that here, and it's obviously a less appealing matchup against the Celtics as well. Embiid at 9,600, I think is reasonable. He played 34 minutes last game. Normally, I end up projecting him around 32. That makes him a pretty appealing option here. He's around a 1.6 DraftKings point per minute guy this season. Simmons, 9K, tough spot. I don't think I'll really get to him. He's not a really high usage guy. Obviously, Embiid doesn't help that either. He's basically just someone that plays a lot of minutes, but I don't really like the ceiling as much in a spot like this against a good defensive team in Boston in a slower paced game.
All right, chat kind of giving Josh the business there. I will say this: you don't realize how many plays go wrong until you start putting out content. It's something that you look at other people's content, you're like, oh, I would have done better than this, or oh, I would have done better than that, or oh, my picks did better than theirs did. No. Start memorializing those, especially early on in the day, and see what happens, and then get up and do it again the next day and the next day and the next day, because DFS content has a very, very limited shelf life. So you feel like you get kicked in the nuts pretty much every day. So that's why sometimes people take an overly aggressive victory lap out there on the old Twitter. I prefer not to. I just prefer to try to maintain consistency, etc. But there are bad days that happen, and sometimes it just feels like you literally pick everything wrong. And there's nothing worse than that's when the Twitter folk that have, and I'm not besmirching them, but it's the crazies that have 25 followers that come out and force those days and really point out how poorly you did, which doesn't make you feel any better either. But that's what happens. That's why we're up here. So it's why you want to do consistent and solid analysis, because that enables you to have more good days than bad days, and people notice that when they start following your content. So anyway, but it's
and to be clear, I think Josh's video is really good. That was
yeah. This is just for those that tuned in a little late. No. For the amount of content our guys put out, we all know how hard everybody works, and feel for them too, because we know sometimes when our numbers up, it's not very fun, and especially if if it happens a few days in a row. I mean, you do something crazy like, I don't know, shave your head or something. So you're going no facial hair. Josh could see another loss here tonight for his 76ers mustache bet going on here. I'm staying out of these bets here. But on to our next game. We got 3 more to go. This one not that exciting. Charlotte at the Spurs. Spurs favored by 8.5 here. We have a 214 over under. We have seen I almost wanted to say the rookie wall. It's his second year for Devontae Graham, but I was hoping their trip to Paris would maybe put a little pep in their step because they played basically one game in 6 days. Granted, yes, they had to do a long flight, but East Coast to Paris is like East Coast to West Coast here. It's not horrible. Plus, they were in very nice private jets, etc. Still never any fun, but I was hoping that would give them a little bit more bounce. Didn't seem to be the case. 1 game sample size here. I am not getting anything from this game. We don't know yet what's going on with LaMarcus Aldridge. He's
went through shoot around, I think.
Okay, so
I'm double checking that. I know I just saw something about him.
Okay, so he theoretically should be coming back. You have PJ Washington tweaked his ankle. Those are the only 2 real poignant things here we want to look at. But DeMar DeRozan just dropping the 50 burgers lately has been pretty impressive. I don't know. Well, what's more unique, DeMar DeRozan dropping those mega games, or LaMarcus Aldridge taking consistently more 3-pointers than DeRozan.
Yeah, so Aldridge went through shoot around.
It maybe hurt his thumb because of all those 3-pointers. I don't know. But I'm not really seeing anything from this game. We've got too many guards available for the Spurs. On the other side, Charlotte's just kind of a whole lot of it's a fun story, but they're priced appropriately for what they've been doing recently. And Scary Terry and Graham have been slipping a little bit there after carrying this heavy load. What do we want to do here? We've seen what's his name? Hernan Gomez has been resurfacing recently. Bismack Biyombo disappearing. I don't know. Well, can you take anything from this game? Because it's on the late slate. So it does have a spot where we're going to be looking at this player pool.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty unappealing. 2 slower teams. Charlotte in particular is incredibly slow. Decent pricing on some Charlotte guys, but they did jump after that game against the Wizards. For example, you have Miles Bridges going from 4,700 to 5,500. Makes it a lot less appealing when the game is nowhere, or the matchup is nowhere near as appealing as the Wizards one was. 7,600 for Devontae Graham is an okay price point, as is 7,300 for Rozier. But both of those guys, not really towards the top of my list of guard plays. We've seen Devontae Graham come back down to earth after a ridiculously good start to the season. The minutes are there, but I just think that there's enough other spots to get to that there's nothing I really want here.
I was trying to. I see that Beast Gaming called me out. Emacs rambling about a bunch of nothing. Yes, I was trying to look up some stuff here and find something good to talk about, and I couldn't because there's not much in this game. But let's get on to the next one. This one is going to be a little bit more fun. You've got the Lakers on a back-to-back, of course, playing in that emotionally charged environment last night. Surprisingly lost. I did not see that one coming there. Portland and Damian Lillard has just been phenomenal. We'll get to talk about them in a second. But you've got the Lakers going on over to Sacramento. Short little trip for them. They're road favorites by 5.5 here. It sounds like everybody should be healthy and playing in this one, including Anthony Davis, who had an outstanding game last night. What do you want to do here with the Lakers? Can we look to anybody outside of LeBron and Davis? Because what the hell happened to Kyle Kuzma? His price is nice, but I don't think we're going to see another performance at that time.
Yeah, I mean, Kuzma's getting some minutes, getting a couple extra minutes recently, which is nice. Had a big game last night. Obviously, that's not going to be the norm.
Rebounds.
Right. Yeah. I mean, the big thing is he still only played 25 minutes. So
in the 5 games prior to that, sorry to cut you off. In the 5 games prior to that, or probably 4 games, he had 17. So
right.
That's an outlier.
Yeah, clearly an outlier game. But the flip side of that is to win tournaments, you need outlier games. And Kuzma is only 4,100. When you start comparing Kuzma to other players in the 4K price range, he has a better chance at one of those monster games than a lot of those guys do, because he's, a higher usage guy than most of them. He's a better scorer than most of them. And if he does run into a big rebounding game or something like that, he can get there. So I do think there's still some upside for him at 4,100. I'm clearly not like bumping his projection or anything because of last night's game. There was nothing about that game that makes me more inclined to play Kuzma than I would have been already. So I think it's just kind of a decent value. Same can be said for like Rajon Rondo or Danny Green, just guys where at their prices they're probably not going to be great plays, but they do at least have the potential to get there. But the two main guys obviously are just going to be LeBron and Davis. It's pretty much all I ever get to from the Lakers when the team is healthy. Davis is still really cheap at 9,300. He's not on any sort of minutes restriction anymore. He's been playing well all season long. So I think that's just pretty clearly a mispricing on him. And then LeBron at 10.6 is a good option as well. I think he's more valuable at the forward position than the guard position on DraftKings, where he's eligible for both.
What was McGee out for the last couple games?
The flu.
Oh, flu. Okay. Guess I was trying to look and I didn't see anything. Okay. So getting out of this one, when you're on that late slate, you're going to be looking at guys like Green, KCP, McGee, and Howard. Rondo makes me a little bit nervous amongst all of them, but the other guys will be in your player pool on that 2-gamer. None really stand out amongst the others, but if I had to pick one, it would probably be KCP, which not what I thought I would say today. Again, that is just for the 2-game late slate. Moving on to the Sacramento side, De'Aaron Fox playing like a madman. I think he's an excellent option across the board, but it's a tough matchup against a good defense. Nemanja Bjelica has, disappointed for his last few games. You've got Bogey, who has moved into the starting lineup. You've got Buddy Hield, who's back on the bench. Those guys are reasonably priced, but again, there's good defenders at basically every position there for the Lakers, which makes this a less than appealing environment. But I am okay with getting the Kings. I don't think I wouldn't set any rules. I don't think I'll get more than one per lineup on the full slate, would be my guess, and it would probably be De'Aaron Fox leading the way.
Yeah, I think Fox is the one that really stands out to me. Overall, the pricing here I think is pretty much correct. Even Fox, I have a little bit of concerns because we obviously saw that monster game last time against the Clippers where he played 35 minutes. But prior to that, we'd been seeing a lot of games where he was on track for 32, 33 minutes, even if the game has stayed competitive throughout. So I'm still I'm going to end up with him projected around 33, 34 minutes here, which makes him look like a good option. But again, the point guard position is pretty stacked today, and it is a tough matchup. So he is my favorite guy from Sacramento. I just still kind of have some concerns there, at least. Dwayne Dedmon coming off of a monster game where he played 30 minutes. His minutes have been all over the place, in part due to foul trouble, in part due to matchups. But at least knowing he has the potential to play 30 minutes is nice. His salary jumped $1,200 on DraftKings to $4,900 though, so nothing more than a secondary option for me here.
All right. Let's see. What do we got here? We've got almost 600 people watching. We need 128 more follows there on the Awesemo Twitter for NFL. So that link is now in chat. Thank you, Nightbot, being actually helpful there for once. But check that out. It's Awesemo NFL. If we get to 5,000 by the Super Bowl, which is tomorrow, we are going to have our biggest giveaway yet. It's not been announced, but little birdie told me it's going to be a good one. So check that one out. Jump on over there. Let's see. Let's get us up to within 100. You got 600 of you guys. I just need 28 of you to run on over there and hit a follow there for us. We appreciate that. Let's see. Oh, Brian Neeson just tweeted at me. He won the Fred Van Elite contest last night with an Awesemo avatar. Top 4 guys had Awesemo avatars, so he will be getting 30 free days of premium. I will be reaching out to you after the show there. Okay. What do you think about Dwayne Dedmon going against more traditional centers in this one? Will he get more minutes tonight, do you think?
Well, I mean, you assume that Anthony Davis is going to be closing the game, so you could see Bjelica out there, or they could stick with Dedmon. I'll end up with Dedmon projected around 26 minutes, which makes him just kind of a neutral guy. It doesn't help that he's a center, so the opportunity cost is higher.
Yeah, and by the way, last game for those of you he had four steals and 7 blocks. Let's see, in his last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 games combined, he did not exceed those 4 steals and 3 blocks. Sorry, 7 total, 4 and 3. But yeah, just be careful on that one. But he will be an option there on the later slate. And then Corey Joseph was another guy. This is the ebbs and flows of Corey Joseph. garbage, 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 garbage. All of a sudden had a decent game because his shot was falling. Don't chase that one either. He's going to be a tough ask even on the short slate. He just does not get the usage that we would. Final game of the night, Adam. We've got Damian Lillard, who apparently literally has no limit to his range. 37-footer, no problem. He's going to start pulling up from half court, I think. Wow, he is definitely in the zone right now.
Did you see him talk about that?
No, I haven't.
After whatever game, not last night, the game before where he went nuts, one of the reporters asked him if he would ever shoot from the other side of half court, and he said he can make it. He was like, I'm pretty sure Stotts would pull me off the floor immediately, so I haven't done it. But he said that he was like, yeah, I mean, he's like, I can just take my normal jump shot from there. It's like no big deal. But he's like, I think I would get benched.
That's funny. That's actually, but I mean, he has just been. It has been something to see over the last few games. The heater that he is on. Price has increased. He's now 5 figures on DK. What do you want to do with that on the back-to-back?
Yeah, so we were talking about it in Slack this morning, and I've been kind of railing against rostering Lillard since McCollum came back, which obviously has gone absolutely awful. But I think it's a really interesting conversation because there's never been any question about Lillard's ceiling. Like, he has the ceiling to pay off 10K. That's never been in doubt. We've seen it recently on the back of him shooting, over 50% from three and just playing absolutely out of his mind. It really comes down to an ownership thing for me. It's not that I think Lillard on its face is like a bad play at 10K. But what we've seen is, 2 slates ago, you had James Harden, Damian Lillard, and Russell Westbrook all the same price. And 15% of the field decided to play Damian Lillard, like 20% played Westbrook, and 25% played Harden. Like, to me, that Lillard shouldn't be in that same range with those guys. You kind of saw the same thing last night where Lillard was 20% owned despite being more expensive than Anthony Davis, despite being barely less expensive than guys like Harden, LeBron, and Westbrook. So if the field is going that route and kind of overreacting to the way Lillard is playing right now, then I think being below the field is the correct approach. But right now, looking at our early ownership projections, we have Damian Lillard at 2%. We have Trae Young, I mentioned earlier, at like 12. You have Kyrie up at 18. If that ownership were to hold, then by all means, just play a bunch of Damian Lillard because the ceiling is just as high as those guys. The median projection is going to be a little bit lower, and that's where the salary is somewhat of a factor. It's, you're not going to start projecting this guy to be the best shooter in the history of the NBA just because of what he's done over the last few games. But he still gets the opportunities. He still plays huge minutes. He's still a really high usage guy. So if there are any slates where the field finally decides, oh, he's too expensive here, I don't want him, then he's a great tournament option. It's just when the field is saying, oh, he's playing really well, he's a priority over guys like Trae Young or LeBron or whoever, that's when you kind of need to be underweight and just accept your loss if he shoots the lights out.
All right. Carmelo Anthony was away from the team last night, did not make the trip to Los Angeles.
Porzingis is out.
Oh, okay. Well, that solves that one. We'll loop back on that one just a sec here, but just looking here. So we don't have any updates here for Carmelo. That of course doesn't change a ton. It just means that a little bit less usage there for rebounding opportunities there for Hassan Whiteside. Whiteside has a tough matchup here going against Rudy Gobert. I'm just looking to see how he has performed previously, though he's actually only played Rudy Gobert 3 times in the last 3 years. Obviously, he was in the Eastern Conference, so that should not be a huge surprise, but nothing to really infer from that one. What do you want to do here with the rest of the Trailblazers?
I think their pricing is pretty affordable, with the exception of Dame, who, like I just obviously talked about. But 8,100 for a guy in Whiteside that is around a 1.3 to 1.35 fantasy point per minute guy and should play around 34 minutes. Obviously not the best spot in terms of rebounding or pace or rim protection for Utah, but still a productive player at a cheap price point. And then CJ McCollum is, still having his minutes staggered with Lillard. He's still pretty cheap and still playing big minutes. So even though it's a tough matchup, I think the pricing here pretty clearly accounts for that. So Whiteside and McCollum still look good. All
right. And then on the other side here, winding up our slate, we'll talk for a second here, going back there on Porzingis, but we've got Gobert and Mitchell. I think are in reasonable spots here. Mitchell particularly at 7,000 on DraftKings. I think Joe Ingles is adequate at 5,200. We should see Mike Conley back in the lineup. I guess that's 16 or so minutes that he'll probably play. Jordan Clarkson played out of his mind in the last game. He had 37 points, but he had 20 in the one prior to that. We know he's a scorer. That's really about all he does, so be careful on that one. He had 22 field goal attempts and 14 in his last 2 games. But I will say, since joining Utah, that is his second game where he had 22 field goal attempts. The other one was against Washington, but he was not making a shot that night. What do you like here from Quinn Snyder's crew?
I think it's a good matchup for him. 117 total is pretty healthy. $8,400 price tag on Rudy Gobert is appealing. His usage has been up over the last month or so, up to about 18.5 to 19% compared to 17.3 for the season. For someone like Gobert that's extremely efficient, that bump in usage is appealing, and the rebound numbers have gone up a bit as well. So you've seen him be really, really productive. Now you're getting a reasonably fast-paced Portland team that isn't very good defensively. So I think Gobert looks good, plays big minutes in competitive games as well. Donovan Mitchell coming off of a really disappointing game against Denver, but you know that you're still getting 35, 36 minutes in competitive games, and it's a good matchup for him. So I want to go back to him. Bogdanovich and Ingles both look like reasonable secondary options. Bogdanovich is scoring dependent, so really tough for him to have a monster game, and obviously can disappoint if his shot isn't falling. Mike Conley, I assume, will be back for this one. Mike Conley will play. So we saw him get, normally he's getting 22 to 24 minutes. He's only 4K. Was a huge disappointment the other day at high ownership. I expect he won't be nearly as popular today. So I do like the idea of getting to some of him, and hoping that now that Clarkson's a lot more expensive, I think what you're going to see as long as he's coming off the bench is one of those guys kind of take on more of a leading role. And normally it's been Clarkson recently, but now that there's a bigger price gap, I think that taking some shots on a 4K Conley makes sense.
All right. I want to point out, look here and see what we got coming in at the old SuperDraft. Anybody's
DeAndre Hunter, doubtful, which should mean Cam Reddish gets back in the starting lineup.
All right. Yeah, Porzingis was going to be one of the top plays over there, but he's out. Let me see here. So I do want to call out John Collins at a 1.4 multiplier on SuperDraft. That is pretty solid. You've got, let's see, Hassan Whiteside with a 1.2, D'Angelo Russell with a 1.3. See, DeLon Wright 1.7, Colin Sexton 1.6. Those are decent guys playing. I really like Kevin Love at 1.5 multiplier going against Golden State there. Those would be some of the guys I would have on my short list of people that I want in my lineup over there in SuperDraft. Again, it's all about the multiplier there. We'll have the DFS building blocks article posted here shortly after lunch, and there's a section in there I write up 3 SuperDraft plays each day, so you'll want to check that out. Looking over here back to Dallas, Adam, with now that we know that Porzingis is out, who are we elevating? I think Hardaway probably is in consideration, Dorian Finney-Smith, but I think Maxi Kleber gets the best boost, at least in minutes. What do you think, 30 minutes for him today?
Yeah, I would think so. Yeah, I mean, the big question mark is how many minutes Willie Cauley-Stein plays. They've been easing him in. He played 12 minutes yesterday. My assumption is that Maxi starts and gets the bulk of the minutes, but it could go the other way. Whichever of them starts would be the guy that I give priority to. It is a situation where you can approach it like we did with Brunson and Barea last night. Maxi is 3,800 on DraftKings. Cauley-Stein is 3,500. So anywhere where Maxi is in your center spot or your utility spot, you'll be able to just global swap him to Cauley-Stein if Cauley-Stein starts. But my assumption is that it'll be Maxi. This is not a game where I would expect Boban to be playing. Trae Young leads the league in pick and roll possessions per game. That is not something that Boban can be out there for. So I would expect the center minutes to essentially be Kleber plus Cauley-Stein.
All right, Maximilian going to be one of our better value options today. I'm sure there will be more. Let's give one premium Slack question here. This is for Achilles. He is asking down here with Ennis Cantor out again. Do you think Williams will see enough of a minutes boost to be viable? I have other guys I'd rather do.
Talking about Grant?
I'm assuming Grant.
Yeah, no, I'm good. Like I think Daniel Tice is a good play.
Yeah, Tice would be the first guy I would go to. His price is ticked up because Cantor's missed like 4 or 5 games. I think.
Yeah,
It's been a while. Tice would be the probable guy I would do there, but it's a tough matchup. All in all, anything else you want to mention before we get on?
Nope.
All right. Oh, sorry. That was for Cubs fan. I saw all the X's come in on my notification and just assumed it was Achilles. Oh, there you go. Sorry, Cubs fan. Sorry, my man. All right. We're going to get on out of here. We are going to have a show at 6 o'clock featuring Fast Eddie Fear live before lock. You're going to want to come check that one out. In the meantime, you can follow Adam over on Twitter at ShipMyMoneyDFS. I am at EMACDFS. Get on over there and follow Awesemo NFL. We get to 5,000 followers before the Super Bowl tomorrow, and we're within 100. We get on over that 5,000 mark, and we will be having our biggest giveaway yet. With that, gamers,